Mandy from Creative Matters, and you're listening to Creative Matters on Air, where I have conversations with new and established artists from around New Zealand. I love to listen to artists' stories and learn about their creative process, and maybe you do too, which is why I've made this podcast, to inspire, inform and educate. I hope you can take away something positive and encouraging from each of these amazing stories to help you on your own creative journey. Welcome to Creative Matters Season 2. This is Episode 1. Thank you so much for joining me. Great to have you back if you're one of our loyal listeners, and a big welcome if this is your first time tuning in. It all began when an idea was sparked between two friends, writer Jannine Wilkinson and photographer Ann Orman, to produce a work celebrating creative women in New Zealand. This week, the result of this powerful union and vision comes to fruition with the release of their book, Spirit: Conversations with Creative Women. Ann Orman is a commercial photographer based in Auckland, New Zealand. 20 years ago, she started doing fine art photography and having solo exhibitions. These were so successful that in 2008, she decided to quit her job, sell up everything and move to Paris to study photography. She has a love of visual storytelling and in particular capturing artisans, especially throughout the South Pacific. The book Spirit has been a dream of hers to celebrate many of her creative female friends around New Zealand, many of whom are in the book. Her love of capturing the detail in images is evident in all her work, and she believes an image should make you stop and breathe and feel something you've never felt before. For as long as Jannine Wilkinson can remember, she has always had a love of books. Jannine would be either transported to another world or learning something and finding exciting new words. For just as long she has wanted to write a book. She has many unfinished attempts behind her, but it was when Jannine met Ann that the reality of writing a book came to life. This is Jannine's first book and has been sometimes an emotional journey to release her writing out into the world. Now she feels there might just be another book waiting around the corner. You can purchase this gorgeous book online at thecreativecollectivespirit.co.nz, and we also have links and images on our blog at creativematters.co.nz. Welcome to Creative Matters, Jannine.
Thank you very much.
It's lovely to have you here. And welcome to Creative Matters, Anne.
Thanks, Mandy. Looking forward to this.
Yeah, we have so been looking forward to this for a number of weeks since we first spoke on our Zoom meeting a while ago. And it's really exciting. We've talked a lot about the synergy between my podcast and your book. And, I think we've got the same sort of values and philosophies and wanting to do the same kind of thing, really. So it's really great to come together. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. It's a great collab, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
For sure. So perhaps I thought we could just talk to each of you to start with to hear about your own creative process and practice, and then we will start talking about the book and how that came about. So Anne, would you like to talk about yourself, where you were born, and something about your photography?
Sure. So I'm a Rotorua girl. I grew up in Rotorua. My father always had a camera, and I'm not sure how much this influenced me, but it was always part of our world that he was always taking photographs of us. And I've still got big old leather suitcases sitting in my hallway filled with all the slides and things. And another thing on a photographer's list is to get all of those off, print them off and put them in an album and things like that. So that was, I think that was part of an influence. And I always had a little camera. I had the little Instamatic one with the little Magic Cube, which a lot of us would have had back in the day, little Magic Cube flash on the top and stuff. But it wasn't really until I was in my 20s where I was given a proper DSLR camera. And I wasn't using it in manual, I was using it in just auto. And I'd, go off on holidays and overseas and stuff and take photos. And then in my early 30s, and a bit of a life change, on a whole lot of levels. My mother had passed away and my father had passed away. And I picked up a camera. I had my camera and I went to what's now called Studio Toy or Studio One, I think it is. It used to be called the Art Station.
Yeah.
Toy, that's it, in Ponsonby. And I did a two-day photography course in black and white film. And so you took your camera, you flicked the camera onto manual, and you threw a roll of black and white film in the camera, and you went out and shot all day on the Saturday. And then on the Sunday, you were in the dark room, and you took your film out, you developed the film, you processed it, and then you printed it. That was it. I was gone. It was honestly 18 months. Every single weekend, I lived in that dark room. So, I was a bit of a bit of a hermit, really.
How
but
amazing.
It was, oh my God, it was a game changer.
Yeah.
And so from there, I was printing all my own work, because you get into the darkroom and print stuff, and you could do any size, and you learned a lot of the process, because photography is very, if you want to do manual photography, you really have to understand the whole manual process. So that was really good from that perspective. I had I had 3 exhibitions. I remember the first exhibition I did was a sellout. I remember walking out of that exhibition, and it was on an afternoon. We had 2 hours. We'd set up out the back of this bar. I don't know how many people came through, but pretty much everything sold. I don't think I knew who I was for about a week. It took me that long to come down.
How incredible.
Yeah, it was
so good.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. And then I started to, print things off, and I make cards and sell them to the shops. And I thought to myself, at the time I was doing recruitment, and I had a whole corporate background. And I just got divorced. There's a lot of big changes going on. I'd thrown myself into my photography, and then one day I was doing career counselling in my recruitment career, and I sat there and looked at the person and went, why am I sitting here career counselling you? I need to go off and live my dream like I'm asking you to do. So yeah, I sold up everything, and I'd always had a dream to go to Paris, and so I sold up everything and moved to Paris, sold my car, sold my house, even rang the IRD and said, don't know whether I'm coming back or not. And moved to Paris for 2 years. But that was in the middle of the GFC. So the GFC hit. I remember coming back I'd just spent 3 months in Africa, and I'd done the course. I'd spent 9 months at a school called Speos, which was in the centre of Paris. And I lived in Saint-Germain in this amazing 1-bedroom apartment. Was on the 6th floor of a walk up. It was a bit nuts. Did a couple of winters in Paris and stuff, and took off to Africa for 3 months after the course had finished. And then when I came back from there, it was major. The GFC had hit, and I thought, well, I don't really want to go to London. I don't want to go to LA. I'll come home and I'll see if I can set up my practice. So I came home, and kind of just from there it's been set up, and so now I'm a commercial photographer. So my work focuses on corporates. I went down that path because it's what I know. I've always worked in corporates and so I know their language. I love the style of photography. It's
And what do you mean by corporate photography?
So corporate. So I photograph for websites, headshots, media releases, advertising, anything that a business pays for imagery. That's what I do.
Right.
So I don't do weddings. I don't do bar mitzvahs or funerals. That's kind of my that's kind of my line. And I have some friends say, "Would you do this for me?" I'm like, "Yeah, but it's not where my core business is come from." But like Jannine, I've always wanted to do a book, and so it's kind of, we're there. I've got a lot of creative friends, so really wanted to celebrate them. I wanted to celebrate the female friends in my life. One woman in the book, Anita, which is one of our master artists, and I remember being in her studio back in, God, it was when I was newly divorced and I was doing the photography and stuff. I was trying to photograph her painting, and I remember looking at them going, these are, excuse the expression, these are shit. These are not great. I wish I could do this better. So it was kind of parked. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I was collecting a lot of art at the time. So it's always been sitting there that I wanted to do something around this.
And it's amazing that you did that course and came back and that became your career.
Yeah.
I mean, you just went straight into it.
I'm pretty driven. There's no question that I kind of just knew that's where I had to go. I think, with my career counselling, it was very much about, I want people to tap into themselves. I want people to go, this is where I need to be. And I've always trusted how I felt about something and followed quite an organic process, but I'm also quite driven. So I don't know.
When you make up your mind, you make it happen.
Yeah, pretty much. I think I do. It's this is an interesting process when you talk about it and you go, yeah, I think that's, yeah. So, and a lot of people said, you've got and I have got a successful business, but I do know that I've had to work hard at it. So my first year of photography, when I'd gone out full time, I just went hard. I just knew I had to have a 3-month cycle and put my business development hat on and followed all the rules that I had been using, and because I've got a background in business development role and business development and marketing and sales.
Good. Yeah, that's very handy.
So it was kind of a natural progression to build a business because I'd built everybody else's businesses.
So you had that knowledge already for the actual business, because often creators find that part hard.
They do. Yeah, they do. Whereas for me, it's just, I love it. I love building a business. I love that process, and making my clients happy. Do you know, every time I do a shoot and they come back and go, wow, Anne, this is exactly what I wanted. I'm like,
yeah.
I feel full. I bet. Yeah.
And I think photography is amazing in that way, that you get that sort of instant gratification almost.
Yeah, you do. You do. The thing about it though is that you've got to be careful, that you've got to have the balance. So for me, doing this project has been important from having a personal. You have to have personal work when you're a photographer. If you keep going down and doing stay driven as a professional photographer, doing purely paid work for other people, it can become a job. So you really do have to have that balance, and you always need to have personal projects. And I have loved lockdown.
Yeah.
Lockdown for me is because I do a lot of travel photography. So before we went into the first big lockdown, I went to, we'd done a month in Bali. We'd done that in the August, and then the Christmas in the December, January, I did 2 weeks in Solomon Islands, and it's some of my best photography yet, I feel. And so a lot of that's about to be published. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
And then, we were talking about, instead of leaving all your beautiful photographs online or on your hard drive, it's actually beautiful to be able to have a purpose for it.
Yeah.
Work.
Not to be morbid, but I thought, I don't want to be run over by a bus and all my images are on a hard drive. I want to get them out. I like them, so I'm sure there's people out there that will also enjoy them. And I say that to other people, get your images into books, even if it's just for you. Do you know what I mean? It would be such a shame to not share what you're photographing, because everybody has their own way of seeing and their own way of looking at things. So every single photographer is different.
Yeah.
They all see it differently.
Yeah.
So,
and it's like artists, isn't it? I mean, you make work and a big part of that is sharing what you've created.
Yeah,
It's no
absolutely.
different. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So on that note, Anne, we might leave that. Thank you very much for sharing. And we're going to talk to Jannine now. She's pulling faces at me, but we're still going to talk to you. Can you tell us about your writing journey?
It's an interesting one. I guess if I look back to my childhood, I've always had this love of books. I've always got a book on the go. My mother read to us as kids a lot. My whole family are into books and things. And I think for me, I've always had that love of the written word. And I remember thinking, when you finish a really good book, and I remember thinking, gosh, I'd really love to make someone feel the way I'm feeling after reading a book. And so that was sort of like the start of it, I guess. Then my work has always been in the corporate space, so it's been nothing creative at all, but I've always had projects on the go in terms of creativeness and that sort of thing. My mother taught us to knit and sew and cook and all of that. Well, no, she didn't teach us to cook actually, but but I do. And so it's always been a part of my life. If I can spend an hour in a bookshop, I'm just in heaven. Doesn't matter which one it is, and invariably I come out with a little treat. I worked for a guy. I was in a sales role, for a PA role with him, and he was the national sales manager of the company I was working for. And he's very verbose. Like, he uses words like some of them I had never even heard of back. I think I was only in my early 20s sort of thing. And I remember sitting there doing shorthand with him, walking up and down the carpet, smoking cigarettes and things.
Wow, the old days.
It was back a few years. And I remember going back to my desk and looking at this shorthand, thinking at some points I'd go, well, I don't actually know what this word is, or I don't know what he said, so I'd have to make things up a little bit. And I'd take these letters back for him to sign, and he'd go, well, I didn't write this. And I went, yes, you did, see? And I'd show him my shorthand book, which of course he couldn't read. So he encouraged the natural love of words as well. I've always written bits and pieces, but nothing sort of really has come together until this sort of book. So this is quite a confronting and somewhat uncomfortable time, but it's also really exciting as well, because it's given me certainly the courage to try more and do more in terms of writing and that sort of thing. So, yeah.
Isn't that great? And we'll get on to how you actually came about, the idea of creating the book with Anne. But, how amazing that you've always had this connection to the written word, and here you are, your first sort of public presentation of your work and your talent is a book.
I think one regret I would have in my life is that I didn't have the confidence or the encouragement or the courage to try and do it earlier, and I think if we look at some of the women in the book, they talk about people in their lives that have been really encouraging for them, like fathers and grandmothers and that sort of thing. So I think if you have that sort of person in your life, it's really, really important, and it gives you the confidence to follow your dreams.
Yeah. And, what would you recommend for people who don't have that person in their lives?
Oh, it's like anything. One of the things they say is if you want to write, just write. Even if it's shit, just write something. I think it's if you want to draw, just draw, and I think for me, wanting everything to be perfect has maybe held me back a little bit, rather than trying something and it goes, well, it didn't work, so try something different. So I would say just do it and keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it and keep, your eye on what your ultimate outcome is, and eventually you'll get there.
That's great advice. I'm sure that will ring true for many people, and not just with writing, with making paintings or, whatever you're creating.
That's right.
It's having the guts to sort of go there and just to keep doing it until you then can start sharing. Yeah. So well done. Big achievement. All right. So thank you, ladies. We are going to start to talk about the book, and I'm sure we've got a lot to talk about in that department. So your book is Spirit Conversations with Creative Women, and I have just got my copy today, which has been beautifully packaged in a gorgeous box, wrapped in brown paper and tied up with string. And it is the most beautiful book I've ever seen. Honestly, it is absolutely gorgeous. I can't wait to actually read it. I've got it here right in front of me. The most beautiful velvety matte cover with a lovely gloss white title, and amazing images and text all the way through. And you in this worked your way across New Zealand to talk to about 34 creative women, is that right?
That's right.
And photograph them and learn their stories of their life, their work, and the challenges they've faced when following their passion. So I can't wait to hear how this book actually came about. So can we go right back to the beginning and talk about how you came up with the idea?
On the day we first met.
At their Christmas party. Yeah, that was amazing.
We did. I had a work Christmas party, and Anne's partner works at the same organisation as I do. And we just sort of met for the first time there and got talking and spent virtually the whole night talking to each other, and that was it.
And Al came up to me and said, are you guys going to talk to anybody else? And we looked at each other and went, nope.
How amazing.
And we both just went, we've got to do a book. It was instant, wasn't it? Wow. It was like we had to do a book.
That's incredible.
And Jannine, you were doing one on businesswoman at the time.
I'd started writing a book about women in business because it was something that I knew, and I've always worked in industries that are very male heavy, and so I wanted to sort of hear some of these stories, and I'd started doing some of the interviews, but I've found that the stories were all very similar challenges, similar things to overcome, all of that sort of stuff, and I thought this is not really a book of different stories. It's all one story from different women. So I sort of got to that point when I met Anne.
Oh wow! And so amazing that you connected as people and sort of became instant friends by the sounds of it.
Yeah.
Plus, you know, the idea of the book.
Yeah. And I'd had a bunch of female friends that were creatives, and we kind of tossed around a lot of ideas actually, and then we settled on this one and went, fuck, this will be amazing. Do you know that deep-seated, this is going to be pretty cool if we pull this off?
I've heard other people say, you know, they had this sort of, I don't know, eureka moment or whatever you want to sort of name it, but it was actually a little bit like that. As soon as we sort of said, you know, what about doing it this, we just went, yeah, that's it. That's the one.
That's it.
How
it was
incredible.
just,
Wow, and that's such a rare thing, isn't it?
So that first year was very much, we contacted the people that we knew. I had people, Jannine had people, we went through them, and that first year we went out and we talked to people. We kind of didn't know we knew what we were doing, but we didn't know what we were doing.
That's
Do you know what I
exactly
mean?
right.
Yeah. And I remember we got to Christmas and I said, let's sit down and we get really clear. So Jannine and I sat down and we said, right, what is this book really going to look like? And we got clear on the categories. We got clear on, we wanted one genre, one woman per genre in the book. So the book had lots of variety.
Ah, so different genres, 34 different genres.
34 different genres. We've got a paint carver, we've got a filmmaker, we've got a winemaker, we have a jeweler, we have a florist, tattooist, tattooist, not just. And the hardest thing was, once we got clear on that criteria, was actually finding these women. The criteria was they had to be working for themselves, so they had to be making money from the business. It had to be amazing. We had to go, oh my God, how did you get to that point?
Or I want one of those.
It's been an expensive journey.
I guess you each own many of these pieces.
Oh yes,
yeah,
we do. We're gonna do a post shortly on Instagram of what we purchased.
Oh my goodness!
I run out of. I think you can only have 10 images in one. Yeah. I have to select my 10 because it's it's kind of a bit like that. But we got really clear, and then I kind of took on the role of going do the research to see who we could find. Was a lot of that. And then I'd because, you know, it took me 6 months to find the Pounamu carver, a female Pounamu carver in New Zealand. I was in Rotorua, of course, where I'm from. I went and saw one of the top male carvers down there, and I said, what females in New Zealand could we talk to? He had to really think about it. He gave me 3 names, or 2 names I think it was, and it was Neki Moa and then I tracked her, and then I had to track her down, and she'd been living in the bush for 12 years and only just come out and living in
That sounds really rugged.
It does.
I don't think it was.
That's exactly what happened. And she says that. I said, I had to ask her a couple of times. It was like, that's exactly what she was doing. She was living up in the mountains with her girlfriend.
Wow.
So, but it took me 6 months to find her. And it kind of really highlighted that in certain industries, like when we found Rebecca Asquith, I really was looking for I think we tried to find a architect or a furniture designer. I couldn't find one that was working for themselves successfully, doing something, just those first 2 criteria. And so we tracked Rebecca down, and she'd been working for Weta Workshop. It took to try and find these women because of these criteria. And that was important because we wanted women to think, you know, I can do that. If these women are doing it and it's something different, I'm going to give it a go. I've had this idea.
Yeah. And I think having all those different genres and different categories that's quite a unique thing in itself. And I mean, it's almost like painters and sculptors, and that's what people kind of think of. And there's actually so much more that people are doing out there that's so amazing.
That's right.
So to be able to highlight that.
I think we wanted to appeal to a wider range of people with the book as well. And inspire, people that are maybe girls that are going through school and don't quite know what they want to do. Just inspire them to give it a go. And so that it was really important that we had that breadth of different creatives.
Absolutely. And did you decide on that quite early on? That's how it was going to be?
That was that year point. That was at Christmas. I remember we sat at your place and said, let's get really clear on what the book looks like.
I think if you think about it, that first year, if you look back now, you sort of go, what on earth were we doing? Like we were so just making it up as we went along. It really was.
That was
a learning, wasn't it?
But we both had such a passion and drive to do this thing that I think that sort of kept us going.
But the beauty of it is that the artists that we both brought in that year to look at were some amazing people. Do you know we've got Kate Hursthouse, and you'd done a calligraphy course with Kate. Do you know, just really interesting people. And I think because they were so interesting, that kind of allowed us to go, so who else do we want that match these people?
I think we were lucky that the first few interviews that we did, or first few sessions, were with really people that were really very open with us, like Hannah Jensen. She's beautiful. And I think we sort of we'd walk out of one of those sessions and just be so excited and so full of it. I mean, I'd get home and just blab all night about it to the poor people that had to listen to me.
I can imagine. And, we were talking earlier how cathartic it is probably for the people you interview, but also for you, allowing them that time to really unpack their lives and their process and practice. And it's similar to what I'm doing with the podcast, and it's quite a moving experience, isn't it?
It can be. And I think, we've had tears and revelations and inspirations going on the whole time from the artists themselves. They'd sit back and go, oh gosh, I haven't thought about that in a long time. It was really humbling, actually, wasn't it?
Really humbling. Yeah.
I bet.
When we interviewed several people down in Christchurch, and they were talking about this is going to make me feel a bit emotional just even talking about it. And they shared what they'd been through with the Christchurch earthquake. And Jackie, a friend of mine Jackie's a big personality. You love Jackie. Jackie was, she's pretty, I know I've known this Jackie for a while. I've known her since I was about 19. And she's just she's a big creative person. What she wears is incredibly flamboyant, and the glasses. And if you follow her on Instagram, she's pretty
I've just followed her actually. She looks amazing.
She's pretty out there. She's very, very successful at what she does and gives a lot back.
And she's a hairdresser, isn't she?
She's hairdressing, and she has a salon called True Grit in Christchurch. But when we were talking to her and she was talking about the Christchurch earthquake, she had to move her salon 5 times because of the earthquake. And the emotion of what it was like to go through those earthquakes, she was in tears.
Well, it's not just her business, it was her people that she had working with her as well. She was their support as much as anything. And so I think she took a lot on board during that time, and maybe hadn't sort of quite not realised it, but not dealt with it maybe, and some of that started coming out again. It's a big thing to go through, I think, something like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there was definitely some emotion. And, and with a lot of the artists they hadn't really talked about themselves and had to kind of sum up who they were. And a lot of them went through quite a cathartic journey that, I think you had a lot of feedback from people saying that was amazing.
I think one of the standout things for me is how I could walk into someone's home or workplace and sit there for 3 hours and just get them to talk about themselves, and and I'd walk in there not knowing them, and I'd walk out, we'd be hugging, and it was incredible. I was very moved by some of them.
Yeah, and that says a lot about the person you are and the person you are, and that you can bring that out in them. But also there's something about creative women who often have that something about them. They have the spirit. Yeah, exactly.
And that's sort of where that name came from, didn't it? Well, we had another name, which we won't go down that track. But this sort of really resonated in terms of that's what it's all about. It is about your spirit.
One of the other criteria that we didn't mention that was really important to the book is that this book was about women who fly under the radar. This wasn't the the really well-known names. It wasn't the Karen Walker, the Trelise Coopers, or the Lisa Rayhanas doing amazing stuff at quite a high level, almost unattainable level, because you've already moved through that hand-to-mouth stage. Do you know, where you're grafting away and doing the business? And we both really, really wanted this book to be about women who need to be seen, and their stories need to be heard, and for other people to read them and go, wow, you know what, I've had this burning idea that, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. Because these women in the book are still, you can relate to them, you can touch them, you can feel them, you can see their journey, you can see their journey online, you can read about it in Jannine's beautiful stories. And it just, even I remember going to a lunch, was it last... God, we've been in lockdown. When were we allowed out last?
Forever. 7 weeks ago.
I think it was last year, and I was talking to this group of women about the book, and this woman next to me said, oh my God, I want to buy that for my daughter. And I sat there and had a moment, because I hadn't thought about the, young, I was thinking more, women in their 20s, or, that are, wanting to change their career. But she said, no, I want my daughter to know, I want to sit in bed and read her a story every night. So she knows that she can be more as an artist. There's all of these, there's 34 different options out there.
Exactly. I love that.
Yeah.
And just the fact that her daughter can be an artist.
Absolutely. And make a living from it. Because the other criteria is that they had to be making a living from it. This had to be 80% of their income.
And why did you choose that?
Because there's a lot of artists out there, everybody's doing things, but if you want to make a living from it and you want to change your career path and make your time 80% as a creative, then we need to represent people that are actually doing that.
I think it's like they've all gone through a big emotional step in confidence to actually spend their lives and make a living out of what they love doing. It's a big leap for a lot of them.
Yeah. And I mean, the thing is that, and I found this with my podcast, there are so many incredibly talented creatives in New Zealand and all over the world, probably. I reckon I could just stay in my little northwest of Auckland area, and I could be interviewing for 3 years.
Absolutely. We sort of. Some people ask why there's 34 women in the book. Well, we sort of got to a point where we went, we actually have to stop this and actually make a book now. Yeah. And it just happened that that's the number that we got to. We could have gone on and on and on.
Well, that maybe is book number 2.
Yeah. We've muted that and we've gone, let's get this baby birth first.
Yes.
But also, this is 320 odd pages. There's only so many, and we wanted it to be rich in stories and images and stuff, and not just be, here's one page on an artist and here's...
That's right. Yeah, I was actually quite surprised there were so many pages on each artist, which I think is nice.
Well, because it's about their story, as much as their work.
So I'd love to know, Jannine, I mean, we'll talk about both of your processes as part of the journey, writing the book, making the book. But Jannine, how did you actually come up with your interview questions, or how did you run the interview side of things to get what you need?
So I would research the artist once we decided who we wanted on board, and they had agreed to come on board. And usual sort of Google searches and, whatever I could find online sort of thing. I'd listen to talks that they might have done, interviews. I'd read magazine articles of where they've perhaps been interviewed before. And I sort of wanted to dig into why they were doing what they were doing as much as, how they do it. So I wanted to sort of try and get quite personal about it, but we also were really conscious that we kept it as a conversation, not as an interview. So I'd have a set of questions. I very rarely would follow them. I'd start off with something that really sort of resonated with me when I was researching them, and I'd say, look, I noticed this, or I read this about, can you tell me about that? And then it would just sort of go from there. So it's quite organic. as opposed to planned.
Nice. And did you record the interviews and then go away and put it together in your own words?
So I would leave the interview with all sorts of ideas in my head around what the main sort of point was for that particular artist, and I'd get home and I write as I was talking as well, so I'd have a lot of notes, and would mic each one of the women up and video record them. So I would sit and I would just write from my heart or my memory, the first sort of draft, and then I'd just off my notes and things, and then I'd go back and listen to the recording, sometimes more than once, and just sort of flesh out some areas. In a couple of cases, because this has been going for just over 3.5 years, some of them we went back and interviewed again because they'd done certain things that we wanted to incorporate into the book. So some of them were re-interviewed. And then I would just flesh out the story. So I might write the ending of the story first rather than from, in a very sort of organised. I'm a bit disorganised in the way I write. But I would have a sort of a theme running through it and then try and sort of get really into the heart of their story. So I think I write emotionally rather than anything else. So if I can really sort of click with this person, there was a couple in particular, Sophia Minson she's just a beautiful individual, and I left her space just absolutely buzzing. I loved writing her story. Some of them were really difficult, and so they were more of a challenge to find a heart to it.
Oh, right.
Yeah, and I think it's just some people are perhaps more open than others, or maybe I drew them out more than others. So it was a challenge to sort of work with different personalities, some that were more open than others.
Yeah, I can imagine. And did you find that you like to get writing as soon as you'd been with them to keep it sort of fresh, or could you put it on hold?
Initially, yes, and then I would have to just leave it until something spoke to me, or I don't know what it was, but I just thought, yep, now I'm going to write that story. I've sort of finally got it in my head what the story is going to be, and I sort of had to work that through a little bit too. So I didn't write them in any order either.
Wow.
Maybe I'm a bit disorganised with my writing.
No.
I have a methodology that works for me, but
exactly.
but it's not a particularly ordered methodology in terms of I don't sit and write one story and then the next, and I don't write from the start of the story to the end.
That's interesting. But, it's about having enough headspace and clarity in your mind to sort of come up with things, and working full-time throughout the process.
Yeah, that was challenging.
Been challenging.
Yeah. But you think about books that you've read where a book will start at the end and then it will tell the story and end up at the end again. I really love that approach. I think I love books that do that. I think it's clever.
Yeah, interesting. So how did you actually work in with Anne doing the photography and that kind of thing?
So we'd try and do the interview or the conversation at the same time as the photography, but didn't always work out that way. So sometimes I would leave and Anne would sort of take the images, and I hadn't seen any of them until, you'd sort of got through your sort of process. And then sometimes again, Anne would go back and photograph them if it'd been a long time and things had moved on as well. So some of the images I never saw until, almost right at the end, which was quite neat, really.
It is quite good. And you wouldn't necessarily be, connecting the images with the writing. It was quite separate.
Quite separate, because we also had to work with where the artists were at. So obviously the conversation that Jannine's having can cover the breadth of their existence, really, whereas I'm photographing the here and now, whatever project they're working on. Often what we'd do is we'd say to the artist that we've got 3 hours, so the interview would usually take about 2 hours. It's half an hour kind of getting to know them, and then I would take 45 minutes to an hour to photograph them at the end. And I would say to them, depending on who the artist was, like if they're in the middle of stuff, we were lucky with the artist, with Nikki Ma, and she was about to do an exhibition, so she had a lot of work already laid out. It was fantastic. Some of my favourite images, and I've used her work a couple of times in exhibitions because it's been really powerful. Others, I've said, well, look, you've got nothing, you're right in the middle of a changeover, you've got commissions coming up. Why don't I come back and photograph you? If it was out of town, no question, we had to do it at there and then. But, and a lot of them were taken only in 45 minutes, and researching, the detail and what we did.
I think one of the funniest things about that was we'd go into someone's place and they'd had a tidy up because we were coming, and Anne's going, no, don't tidy up, I want to see it messy.
Yeah, because
tidying up studios.
Yeah, because I love detail. I love getting very close to something and getting that really shallow depth of field, and I have this weird obsession with hands. I love photographing hands. Hence the cover kind of came together. We didn't even think about that. That kind of just was, I think Kieran kind of picked that up and went.
Yeah, so we've had Kieran Modrica working with us, and I happened across her as well at a marketing association breakfast. And I remember walking in on my own and getting a cup of tea and thinking, looking around the room, who am I going to talk to? And she was standing over there with a guy, and I thought, I'll go and talk to those two. And it wasn't until later she said to me, oh, thank God you came over because that guy was so boring. And, we just got talking. She works for a children's book publisher, and she just picked up on the excitement of the whole thing right from the first get-go. So she's been an incredibly important part of this whole process.
And what was her role?
So she's done all the layouts of the book. She's helped us through the publication sort of process because that was all pretty unknown to us as well, and she had a good understanding of that.
She was amazing.
But her ability to, she'd look at things like where the text would end in conjunction with the rest of the page, and
her ability to interpret what we wanted the book to look like was phenomenal. She just nailed it. Kieran and I would sit there because it was photographic heavy in a lot of areas. Kieran and I would sit down and look at what the layouts would look like and where the images would go. And I remember the first one, and actually Philippa is the first artist in the book. I remember Kieran and I sat there and we had oh my God, that's it. It just, everything about it, the images work, the light in the images, the way the layout was, and we went, right, every layout we do has to give us that same feeling.
Yeah.
We have to go, that's it. It works. And so the book kind of, so that I think that's why, I mean, from my perspective with how the images sit, I'm really happy with it because there's a lovely flow. Kieran had a beautiful knack. What I would do is I'd take all the images, I'd edit down to, a couple of hundred and go, here you go, with the starter, go, here you go, guys.
Wow.
You choose which ones you like. We found that we were all choosing the similar images. So in the end, I kind of just gave it to Kieran, and Kieran, the second half of the project, Kieran would pull out those images and put them in. And
that's quite trusting of you to do that in a way.
She had you get too close to it as a photographer. I'd go, but I want all of these images in there. I was like, no, can't happen. So
they're all fabulous.
I had to go. Well, yeah, there's stuff that I like, but there's these 10 images, but you can only put 5 in the book, and I'm like, I'm too close to it.
That would have been hard to choose.
I think she was a good foil for both of us too, because we tend to get a bit excited. And she's very calm. And the amount of times that we asked her to change something and then change it back and then change it again and then change it to something else. Oh, no, now change it back to the original. And she just quietly went about doing it. And no, she's an amazing woman.
Amazing.
She's amazing. We were just, And the other, sorry.
So I was going to say, it was actually Kieran that came up with the image for the cover of the book with the hands.
Yeah, and that's Fiona Mackay, isn't it?
Yeah,
with the
that's right.
Yeah.
It's very beautiful. It's so tactile, and it just feels very, you can really connect with it, can't you?
Yeah. And it's the only one that worked, because we tried a couple of others and
with the title
just didn't have the same impact. So
that's beautiful. Did you want to say anything else about your
no, I was just going to say there were 4 of us working on the book, and the other person was Laura Skerritt. I was going to a moment about pronouncing names. Sorry, Laura. Anyway, so she came on. Laura had come on board to manage all the social media. So she built our website for us, populated the website, has managed all the Instagram, doing all the Facebook. She's been feeding that beast, that hungry machine for us.
She has.
There's no way that we could have done the social media without her. We've been incredibly fortunate to have an amazing team of 4.
We used to meet up at the
Pullman Hotel
when we were allowed to go to places, and the 4 of us would sit there and we were going through picking the paper stock, I think, was one day. And right. Ann and I had brought along about 8 books each and we had them all spread out. All 4 of us were oohing and ahhing over it. And I think at one stage we were told to sort of contain ourselves a little bit because it got a bit excitable. But we would just meet up there and just, all 4 of us just really clicked as a group. It was incredible.
Really good sort of personalities. You all had different strengths, I guess.
Yeah.
The right personalities for the right job.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
And did you two as friends ever have any difficulties working so closely on a project?
We've been pretty good. We've had
the odd moment.
Yeah. That's just natural though of working together because we're both quite driven and headstrong individuals. But I suppose the flip side of that is that there's no way we could have completed the book without each other either. It's there'll be times that I'm in overwhelm with work and I'm going, oh my God, and Jannine would pick it up and carry it for me, and then there's been moments where I think it's possibly happened with you and. You have to have that yin and yang, and I think when you work that closely with someone, you've got to be. We'll have moments, and then we've got to be gentle on each other, and then celebrate that we've got to the end, and that we actually produced a book together.
Oh, I think it's a respect thing too. Like you have to be respectful of the talent of each other, and also that if you're having a bit of a moment, that you just got to give people space, but you also wanted to finish it for the other person as much as yourself. So I think that was a really big thing.
And also that end bit was pretty stressful. We were under the pump, and we'd get quotes on getting the book published, and COVID had really hit us, and it was getting expensive, and we got a re-quote because we're getting a bit behind in getting it completed, and they said, well, your costs have just gone up 30%, and
oh wow.
Yeah, I think that last stretch was pretty stressful.
There's so much detail in publishing a book, and I think that's been a big learning, certainly for me. Like, I sort of talk about learning new words and things like, the ozzolid is my favourite word, ozzolid.
Oh my God, what is it?
It's basically the proof of the book.
What's the
but
word?
It's ozzolid.
Ozzolid.
It's a certain type of paper that they use to basically give you a proof of the book, just to check things like the photographs are in the right place, or if we have a matte varnish, that the matte varnish is in the right place, and all that sort of stuff. But I just fell in love with that word. But the process itself is extremely detailed. There's so many little bits to it,
I can imagine.
And we were lucky having Kieran sort of gently pulling us along by the nose.
And is it important, the relationship you have with the publisher, or is it more about sort of Kieran?
We self-published, so it was basically Kieran helping us through that process.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That could be a whole other podcast of how to publish a book.
How to self-publish.
Yeah.
Without question, that definitely is. And I always say it's a bit like having a baby, as a lot of people have had a baby, but no one gives you the guidelines of how to be a parent. Like here's step 1 to 10. It's a bit like that with publishing. We really had to I remember when we did the blad, we're going, what's a blad?
Yeah.
Do you know what a blad is?
What is a blad?
A blad is what you use to sell the book in with. So you reproduce a portion of the book, and that's what the distributors go out and sell into the booksellers with.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we had a couple of attempts at that.
We've got Bateman's as our distributor. So we were lucky enough to be able to work with Paul Bateman, and he's got a very casual approach to things, and I think he didn't quite realise how much we didn't know at the start, but he's been a real guide for us in terms of getting through the process as well.
Yeah, he's been amazing.
Yeah. And so with all you've learned, do you feel like you really should create another book after all that learning? I mean, it feels like you're sort of ripe for the development of further books from all that learning.
I think both of us have got
Ideas.
more books in us.
Yeah.
What they are, I don't think has quite sort of come to light yet. Anne's got her photography books that she's already started on.
You wouldn't think
whether
about
there's another
doing
one
more
together
of the same.
Maybe we don't
Yeah,
we don't know.
yet. I think we'll let this one
Yeah,
get
as you
sold
said.
first and see.
Yeah, exactly.
I think we
Yeah.
want to enjoy this one.
Yeah.
You know, the process that we're going through with this one. It's just
It was a big
amazing.
job. This was a big. I mean, I literally burnt out a couple of times going through trying to work and do this because, do you know, the artists are all around New Zealand. A lot of them. You're trying to book in to their time. You're trying to book in to our time. And then it's a half day out of your time. Then you've got all the back end stuff because you've got to, Jannine's writing the stories, I'm editing all the images, and then we've got to put the book together. So
It's huge.
maybe if we'd known as much as we know now, we might not have.
Yeah, people say that, don't
but
they?
here's the thing: if we were to do this, knowing what we know now, we
Would
have
it be
a
easier?
far clearer path. I think.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I feel like, it would be great to use that learning to create more. But it is a big book.
It is.
I mean, you could have made a smaller book, ladies.
But we wanted it to be a coffee table sort of book. Like we've reinforced the spine so that when you open the book, it'll lie flat expressly for that so people can have it open and see it. And
I always wanted to do a photography book as a coffee table book. So for me, this fulfills that dream or that passion, is to do something that sits on someone's coffee table as a photography book.
Yeah.
I think the other thing too is we did get 50 book blocks printed at the same time. So the book blocks you take to a book binder and they hand bind them. And one of the ladies in the book, Louise James, will be doing that for us. So we will have some quite beautiful, hard, hand-bound copies
beautiful.
available at some point where we can get over to see her.
Yeah.
That's so nice.
She's also had a baby, half the people in the book have had kids and stuff, so she's a bit hard to pin down at the moment.
And it must have been fun doing the roadies together to meet these creatives.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun.
Yeah. Cool.
Let's do another one.
Let's do another one.
Good.
I do actually. I said to you earlier, I was going to tell you the story of what happened when because we'd flown down to Queenstown, and we'd interviewed Anita in Queenstown, and then we'd driven over to Port Chalmers to do Deborah Fallowfield, and then we met up in Cromwell to do. And I don't drink coffee. I'm not a caffeinated coffee girl, but I'd just been to Bali, and I'd had a cup of coffee over there, caffeinated, and went, you know what, I reckon I can do this. So I'd only just got back. Anyway, we met in Cromwell, and I'd had 2 espressos before going in to do that interview. Gypsy West.
I think she thought we were mad. The two of us were Anne was bouncing off the walls. I was bouncing off her, bouncing on the walls, and we were all very excited.
And I took these images and I thought, oh my God, what are these images going to turn out like? And they've ended up being some of our favourites in the book. So.
That's interesting.
Yeah, we've had
some.
Coffee
is the go.
No. no, I've gone back to decaf. I can't sustain it. Yeah.
That's interesting. Anyway. It's funny. And I mean, this week you have released the book. Was that Monday it was released? So beginning of October. How does the release work? What have you been up to this week?
Well, I think the bit before that though was actually picking up all the books from Bateman's, and Jannine had to manage. I live in an apartment, so I have a 2-bedroom apartment, so 2 pallets of books wasn't going to fly up my
I have
place.
an interesting looking garage at the moment.
I
bet.
Yeah.
So why did you have the books? So some go out to stores, I presume.
So Bateman's have a certain number of them that they will distribute. And then we wanted to be able to sell ourselves as well. So we had to, because at the moment they're a bit pushed for space in their distribution centre, we had to go and pick up 500 copies of this book and put them somewhere.
Wow.
And then, of course, do all the fulfillment that comes with the orders and that sort of thing. So that's been a learning curve, how to use Shopify and all that sort of stuff as much as anything.
And you had a lot of back orders, I presume.
We had a lot of pre-orders.
Yeah,
a lot. It's been interesting that since Monday, since we've actually been getting the books out in front of people, we've had some incredible feedback. We've had the artists on their social media showing people showing themselves in the book and that sort of thing. And that's really like the orders this week have just been fantastic. And I have to say this, with the Shopify app on your phone, every time a sale happens, it does a little cha-ching.
Really?
So it's like a cash register.
Oh my goodness. Cha-ching,
It's like,
cha-ching.
oh, there's another one.
How exciting.
Yeah.
Wow, I mean, this week must have just been an absolute buzz for you.
Yeah, it's been a pretty wild week. So we went out on Monday. So Jannine and I, because of lockdown, Jannine and I joined Bubble so that we could sign the books. And so we did a big book signing of about 200 books, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And then we decided to mask up and socially distance, hand out the books to the artists so the artists could have. And Jannine's done the most incredible job on the packaging. It is
it's so beautiful.
You would have seen it when you opened yours.
Yeah,
it was
loved it.
Absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. And did you go and visit everyone around New Zealand?
No, just Auckland.
Just you couldn't have. That's right, of course.
Yep.
Yeah,
we
locked
never
in.
did that.
We're locked into Auckland.
We're locked into
This
Auckland.
could be another one of those awkward cases.
Yeah. So
Anne and Jannine have flown to Christchurch with their books. Oh my God!
just to be clear,
We've had a lot of conversations on front porches this week.
I even bought a selfie stick so I could take distanced photographs
So
for
good.
Instagram.
Yeah, but how lovely to be able to go back to your people.
Yeah.
It was really nice too, and the level of appreciation and I guess excitement from them has just I don't know, it's just give you a bit of a buzz, really.
Yeah, all that hard work for 3 years, 3.5 years.
I mean, I still look at this book and I'm just, I just love it. I have to say, do you know? And I feel quite detached from it. I feel like it is a beautiful book to give away to people.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it really is. And this week I guess must have been quite a sort of momentous week for both of you. You know, not only have you been successful in your project, and it's this is the fruit from all that hard work, but you are both putting yourself out there with your creative talents. So how have you found that?
Where you go?
Confronting. And I guess for me it's a little different because it's the first time that I've had my writing out there. And I'm sure there's going to be people that can be critical about the way I write, or I should have put a comma there or not, or whatever. But that's just my style of writing.
Yeah.
But I feel happy with it. We had 6 people edit the text to make sure that we got it right.
Wow.
And I think that was more confronting. It was just releasing it to people I didn't know and getting them to edit it, because it is a critique of your work by doing that.
Yeah.
And so I think once I'd done that, I felt a little bit more comfortable about it. But people write in a certain way, and that's my way of writing.
Yeah, which is what we enjoy. I mean, it's something that you're bringing to the book. Yeah. And how did you feel?
Because I'm a commercial photographer, I've seen my work on billboards and buses and magazines, and so that side of it wasn't as confronting for me, but my photography peers was the ones I was probably more anxious about. And actually a close friend of mine he's taken our headshots in the book, and he looked at it the other day and he goes, yeah, this is pretty cool. And I went, oh,
yeah,
okay, I'm okay. And then someone else looked at it and went, wow, this is not what I expected. This is way better than what I expected. I'm like, do you know, so I've kind of settled down now that my peers have seen the book and are okay with it.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. That's more confronting than, yeah.
But I think criticism is part of the learning, I guess, and growing, isn't it? Like, some of it, as long as it's not, trolling criticism. I mean, some of it you can sort of go, yeah, well, actually that's a good point, and I can incorporate that into whatever I do next.
Yeah, I guess it depends how you receive the criticism. It's like having an art exhibition. You're sort of putting your soul out there a little bit, aren't you? It's, it's so much a part of you.
Yeah, and that first one's always the hardest, that first exhibition.
I think there's a lot of the women in the book too talk about that first public sort of viewing of their work as being quite a thing to get through.
Because you become so attached to your work. Even sort of giving away or selling your work can be hard for some
But that's
people.
the thing about the creative journey, and I know for myself, and I think you've talked about it as well, Jannine, is that, your work, for me as a photographer, I photograph what I feel. I photograph what I see it, and I have to feel it. So I'm photographing my soul. Really, this is how I see the world. So the book really is a representation of how I see the world.
Yeah, it's so true.
And so if an artist is doing their work, when you really go deep and connect with yourself, and then you put it out and say, "Hey guys, look at this." That first time is very confronting.
Yeah, and I think I said earlier that, I think I'm an emotional writer. So when something really resonates with me, that makes it easier to write. And you can sort of understand why, you hear authors saying that they wrote this thing and they put everything into it, and it might be a book that has components in it that maybe they don't want their parents to read or something like that, but you write from the heart, and that's what gives it its life, I think.
Yeah, but it's very personal. Yeah. So, talking to all these amazing women, can you both think of something that you learned from them as a whole or from individuals?
I think for me it would be courage. And courage has always been a word that rattles around in my head for some reason. It's courage to just try. That, and that things don't have to be perfect the first time.
That's a good one. Yeah. Mine's connection. Mine's about a big part of doing the book was to get all these artists connected with each other so they could support each other, moving forward. That was really important for me. And the friendships that I've made from the book, from the artists in the book that I didn't know, have been quite beautiful. Do you know? So I just love that. I suppose I've always looked at my photography as about connecting to self and connecting to others, but just this book is about a group of women connecting together. And I mean, the idea is we wanted to have a book launch. Not going to happen this side of Christmas. But we will have one where we can get all those artists together so they can all meet and connect with each other and and talk and then become supportive of each other. So
and end up with their own little network.
Yeah.
Sure. I hope I get invited to that. Please.
We'll have you on the list.
I think it'd be really quite cool for them to talk to each other about how they felt going through the experience as well. Like I know a lot of them sort of have said, "Oh, I can't believe that you want to include me in it." And it's like, well, why wouldn't we? Look at your work.
Yeah.
I know. I find that a lot when I ask people to be guests as well.
And they're like, why?
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't, people, just somebody this week said, "I'm not sure if I'm qualified enough." And I'm like, you don't need any qualification. You have your gorgeous work. That's your qualification.
Which is why what we've done with the book and what you're doing is so important for people to be able to recognize that what they're doing is important. Do you know? Just you change people. I think art changes people's worlds. It changes how they feel.
Yeah, and it's so nice for other creatives and people who feel like they're not creative to hear those stories. So, they can be inspired and it might help them to get going or, inform them in some way. And, I think we're all trying to do the same thing in that way.
I delivered a book to someone this week, socially distanced, of course. And she's an artist herself. And we got talking and she was saying that she's quite new to having her work out there and she felt a bit of a fraud calling herself an artist. And I said, but look, you are one. And she said, I know, but I felt funny calling myself that. And I went, yeah, I know what you mean. I sort of, I guess, went through a bit of that calling myself a writer, but there's the book.
I know. And I think every podcast, people have said the same thing, that, terminology or sort of getting your head around who you are and what you present is difficult for some reason. I'm not sure why.
I did the same as with photography, and I remember, and I talk about Anita because her journey and my journey have kind of been paralleled with her becoming an artist. But she always said to me, "You're a photographer." I went, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, not yet. And I don't know when that turning point was, but I don't think I can separate my name off with doing photography anymore. I think that happened a little while ago, but that's a big.
I remember you saying that to me.
What's that? Oh, yes.
But you're a writer,
You're
Jannine.
a writer,
I'm like,
Jannine.
No, I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's just a
interesting.
natural part of the process.
It is.
Yeah.
And then
for
you sort
sure.
of go through that journey and you have to stick at it and keep making, and then you sort of over time get your head around that
Yeah.
somehow.
One of the things I think is really lovely is that Helen Clark has signed the foreword of the book for us, and you've been talking with her around that.
Great.
Yeah.
She was on a panel at a function that I went to, and I remember sitting there listening to her. I was at the, I think, New Zealand Women's Institute of Sport, and I remember listening to her, and I thought, she would be perfect as an endorsement for us. She's really into the art world herself. She's very, very supportive of women in every aspect of life, whether it's sport or business or art
absolutely.
or whatever. And so I stalked her at the end of the event until I got a gap and just went for it. And she was really open to it. And then it was probably 18 months later before we were actually ready to do that part of the book that I went back to her, and she's like, yeah, I'm happy to do it.
So good.
So it was brilliant.
Yeah, no, she's a great person to have endorsing the book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We've yet to present her copy to her yet. She'll wait for those levels to come down.
Yes, exciting.
Yeah.
Oh, well, we're kind of coming to the end of the podcast, I guess. I'd just like to ask a couple of tricky questions for you both to answer.
Is this like a quiz?
Kind
No,
of.
that's what I was thinking. Pub quiz time.
Yeah.
I'm not going to win.
Hardest thing.
For me, juggling it with a career, being a full-time, commercial photographer, that was the hardest thing, was juggling that time and not losing my shit. And I lost my shit a few times. That would be for me. Yeah.
Jannine?
To keep going. And I'd have to say that's what's really worked with Ann and I, is that she's kept me going sometimes when I've sort of perhaps lacked a bit of confidence or just sort of couldn't get my head around what I was doing. So yeah, there's a lot of hard things. There's a lot of things we've had to learn.
There would have
and-
been. I can imagine.
Yeah.
The scariest thing.
Scariest thing, and I hope she excuses me for saying this, but was interviewing Nikki Moore.
Oh, yeah. Nikki Moore's a big personality.
It's one of the ones that I love the most, interestingly. So when I walked into her place, she's quite a larger than life sort of person. She's very kind. She's brilliant at work, and she was very open about her story. So that's why I liked the story so much, is because it was like I felt most nervous doing that one.
Yeah, and that's for you a way of connecting emotionally too. Yeah. Anne?
I think I mentioned it before, was my peers seeing the book. And it wasn't until the president of the AIPA said, oh, we'll get you on you can do a little circuit and come and talk to the photographers. I'm like, no, I don't think I can do. I hadn't quite put myself at that point. And so to get the feedback that the book had hit the mark, that was my biggest fear.
Yeah, that must be a big sigh of relief.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And I'm just trying to think of one more question to condense it. The best part of the experience for you?
The best part, I guess it's the friendships that we've made, but also crying when I saw the first proof.
I bet.
Oh, you've just brought up one of my scariest parts. That was sitting in Bateman's crying when I had to get I'll come back to your question. When I had to get the colour tones of all, and I had a digital copy, I had a digital proof, I had some printed proofs, and I had my own, digital copies on screen, trying to match them up. And I remember sitting there, and I said, Jannine, you have to come to this point with me. And I remember sitting there crying. So I was just I was exhausted and I was in overwhelm. And I thought, what happens if this comes back and they're all, the images are all too hot, which means they're a bit warm, and the yellow tones and the skin tones are out. And I'm like, all the colours of the artist's work aren't. That was probably my scariest thing.
True, yeah.
Aren't true.
That would be tricky.
I think so too. We didn't know what was going to come back. I mean, we were sort of forced to print up in China in the end, just because we couldn't afford to do it locally. But just being a bit unknown about how it was going to come back.
Yeah.
And everyone likes to tell stories of, scary stories about how, I published a book in China, it all came back to front, or, we didn't have any problems whatsoever with that.
None whatsoever.
That's great.
And the books arrived early. Books arrived probably 2 months early.
Wow.
So,
that's very good in these COVID days. Yeah.
So for me to answer your question, and this might surprise you, my big moment here was working with you.
Was your worst moment?
No,
The
my
best.
the best part of it.
I haven't asked the
Thank
worst
you.
moment.
Because I couldn't have done this.
No.
Do you know? And you dragged my ass along at some points when I was going kicking and screaming, going, I'm done, I just can't. And we wouldn't have crossed the line without you.
Yeah, same.
Well done.
Definitely a joint success.
Yeah,
I would say.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And, I think it's such a beautiful thing on so many levels. Spirit Conversations with Creative Women is the most gorgeous book. I encourage everybody to buy one from their website or from the link on our blog. And, for me talking to you guys, the first time we got in touch, I just instantly felt these are my people. There's something about you. We had a Zoom meeting and it was just like we were already friends. And, I think you probably don't give yourselves enough credit for who you guys are and how that has influenced the beauty of the book on so many levels, and the way you've connected with creative women. And, it's been a joy to meet you, and I hope that we can see more of each other. And congratulations on a beautiful book and a huge, successful project.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mandy. Thanks for having us on.
You're welcome.